Hi, I'm Tony George. I'm the Wheeling Woodworker. What I'm going to do is I'm going to explain how I set up the sharpened bowl gouge. This is a 3/8 grind. I also have others, 1/2 inch, 5/8, 1/4 inch. So what you want to do is you have to determine the angle of the grind. I like a little bit steeper. This is 55 degrees. Some people like 40. I like it where the pressure from the cut goes in to the cutting edge, into the tool rest. So what I'm going to explain is I'm going to draw a line on my wheel so that you can understand how to get a perpendicular line so that you can set up your plate, to set up the bevel angle of your tool, and then go to your wheels to do your grind at that particular angle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show on a stone wheel and then a CBN wheel. The stone wheel, you dress it, you grind it so you can get rid of the glazing from the steel that grinds off as you sharpen. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to strike a line across here. Basically what this does, it's on the axis of the center of the arbor of the grinder. Now I can take and my tool rest. I can readjust this so that I get relatively close to 40 degrees, 55 degrees. I like 55. What I did is I set my protractor up 55 degrees. The ruler sets in the flute of the grind. Basically, there's no shadows behind it. You can't see something like between the cutting edge and the slope angle. That slope angle is determined according to what you want to have. I like 55 because I like the pressure going into the tool rest. So it's not beating me up. It's going into the tool this way, not this way. So I establish my angle, I establish my bed angle here. What I would do, take a Sharpie, color the back of your tool. Set it on your angle plate. Rotate this by hand, you can see where your grind is. The reason you need to have this angle is so when you go to set up your tool holder, and this is the Wolverine sharpening system. So I have the Wolverine chisel holder, the gouge holder, and I think that you need 3 different things. You need distance from the tip in the holder. This is determined. You also need the angle of the foot. How do you determine the angle here? And then also what you need is the length of your rod. So some people, what they would do is they would figure their angle out. What I use, well, Jameson's block for setting the tool holder to the bowl gouge. So this sets in here. This locks. There's one dimension. My next dimension is the angle of the tool the angle of the tool. Now the way I do this is I got a series of dowels. These are just half-inch dowels. And I write on what they are, the dimension. For what the tool size is, there's a half-inch. This is a long, and when I mean long, this is a long wing, the sweep on the side of the grind. This is a short. This is a half-inch. The reason I like to use these is because as you dress your wheel, you decrease the diameter of the wheel. As you decrease the diameter of the wheel, the tool has a tendency to come down. Now you've changed your tip angle. So you still have to adjust your arm for your tip angle and your side grind angle. One of the things in Lyle Jamison's tapes, he goes through how to set it up, and I think it's a pretty good system. There's more than one way to do this, of course. Some people do it just off of their tool. I like to be able to, how do you determine that angle? That's why I'll set this up with the line on the grinder. And then I can come to this after I determine the lengths here. And how do I determine those things? One of the things, after you get your tool length and your tool holder, that's one. Another one is this, and I'm going to do that in a minute. The other dimension is the angle. How do you determine this angle here? You put your tool in it, you get this, set it up to your stone, figure your say 40 degrees, lock this in. Now, when you want repeatability, what I usually do is I will take this, see this, John? Like this. This is a 3/8 short. 3/8 long grind. Long grind being the length of the wing, from the tip to the back of the wing. So I like a long grind. Some people might think that that's short, but I do have a shorter grind. Some people like to have a real long one. If you ever watch Glenn Lucas, he'll take a grind like that and he'll make a cut like crazy. So what I do in order to determine this is I'll use my block, so that this is free flowing, and I will bring this up to this line. See that, Joe? You see the line?
Yeah.
The tip. So what I'll do is I'll bring that up to there, and I'll lock this in. So this line basically determines the angle of this. Once I got the leg locked in, I usually lock it in and I leave this. If I needed to use something else, here's a 3/8 short grind. It might be a little bit different. Or if I'm going to do a 1/2 inch grind, same angle, but the line is different. So these dowels, and these are just 1/2 inch dowels, determine the length of the leg off the flat platform. I've got a friend of mine who's a blind turner. She's quite good. One of the things I would tell her, and her name is Andy, is to put a block. So I could take this little block here, I can set this to whatever the length is. I think I cut this dowel a little bit short. But I would glue this into place, and this would be basically the bottom of the thing. So I could actually close my eyes. I'm using this block. I can close my eyes, put this on the bottom of the block, set it in place, lock it in. You can feel this. This you have to have your eyes. You need to be visually. But this is one way to determine it. Another thing I would explain to Andy is this is a grinding stone. It's an abrasive like sandpaper. You can run your fingers over sandpaper. You can't run your fingers over a knife. So if it's an edge, it will cut you, it'll pull you in. If it's an abrasive, yeah, if you push too hard, it will grind your skin away, but you can touch this when it's when it's running. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can touch the wheel, just like a sandpaper, you can touch it. You gotta be conscientious that you don't wanna grind your fingertips away. If you get it caught in between a platform and it gets pulled in, it will grind you terribly bad. This is very, very cautious grinding. One of the things that she was concerned about is how she could sharpen her own tools in setting up the piece of equipment. So I have to reset the leg to my 3/8 long grind. So I'll loosen up the leg, bring this up to the line, lock it in. Now, does this have to be perfect? I'm going to say that you're probably a few degrees off one way or the other, whether it's adjusting your basket, call this a basket, or whether your angle. It's going to be so minute, just a couple of degrees isn't going to hurt anything. So now we've got our leg angle. We have our distance from the Jamison setback, and that's usually about 2 inches. And you could take and make one by drilling a hole in a block of wood and then chiseling it out. Put a penny in the bottom of it so it doesn't gouge out the bottom of the wood. It's a pretty simple thing to make a depth gauge for your bowl gouge. So now I've got my leg locked in. Now I want to make sure I keep this angle. I know this isn't the way to really use your tools. I'm just going to tighten up that little wing nut. Now I'm set. So I've got 1, 2, my third one is this. So I take that 3/8 long grind bowl, and what I did is I just chamfered the end of the dowel. This length here determines the length, and basically what I do is I try to aim for the center of the stone. So I can take this, set it over here. I can find my mark, which is right here. I take this, bring this up to my stone. As long as I'm on that mark, I can lock it in, and I'm very close. I'm within a couple of degrees of my original grind. So now this is set, this is set. All I have to do is set my bowl gouge into my jig, set the depth in the jig, the tool holder, lock that in, set this in here, and because of my disability, I go both ways. So what I do is I'll sharpen one side, and then what I'll do is I'll turn around and I'll sharpen the other side. So when I do this, I don't go 90 degrees, I don't go straight in. I usually bring it back a couple of degrees off of center. So what I'm doing is I'm coming way over, I'm over here like this. Can you pick up that angle, Joe? So I'm not straight on. I'm over here. So that when I swing, I can swing away. And you want to hold this, don't worry about back here. Hold everything up here. From here, you swing, then I'll go to the other side and swing it that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to dress that wheel. This is a CBN wheel. I like this wheel because it cuts well. But if you take and you dress a stone wheel, you can get these very, very smooth. Don Geigner has a system that he has developed that is very, very good. And he has it so that you can have a spacer off of your basket. This is just my simple method is using these. It's cheap, it's easy. How do you determine that length? You have the angle on your tool tip. from your plate. So you have your 40 degrees, I got 55, but you set that, now you have that. Now what you do is you set your basket as such, and you lock this in. Spin your wheel, look at your ink, and it's going from the tip to the heel of the cut. You're in good shape. So how do I determine the length of my dowel after I have my angle? What I usually do is I'll take this and I'll actually come right up against the wheel. So I'm going to just move this. So what I would do is I would actually, the grinder is running, I would cut the wheel so that I have a mark, and then I cut it off there. That's how I determine the length of my stick. It's not anything that I measure. It's once I have my angle to what I like, I have this distance, I have the leg angle off this flat surface, so then I have 1, 2, and the third one, of course, is I bring this up, I come up in here, I touch my dowel, and I grind it, set this to the mark, and I have the full length. So the first thing I usually do is I set the bowl gouge in the holder, I determine the length to the stone, then I determine the pitch angle. And the pitch angle, of course, is this black line. Or the bottom of my dowel, and I take a piece of dowel, drill a hole in a block of wood, glue it in place, and that's the same as your black line here. So 3/8. So I need my 3/8 bowl gouge. Well, what I want to do with this wheel first is I'm going to dress this wheel. This angle here, just for dressing, is basically the same as sharpening your scrapers. It's pretty indeterminate, indiscriminate. It doesn't really matter. It's up to your discretion what you want. What I have is Don Geiger has developed. In the machining industry, they use industrial dimers to dress surface grinders. What Don has done, he's got an adjustable with a lock with a diamond tip cutter, and this sets on this system here. So I back this out, make sure I get it, have it so it's locked in. Here, sitting in one place and not the other. So this wheel needs to be dressed. But you can see the black on there. That black is a glazing from the steel when you sharpen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my grinder. I'm going to dress this. I'm going to advance this if I need to redress it again. I'll shut the machine off and I'll check it. I think it's pretty good. It's clean, it's white, it's hitting. You need dressed stones. When your stones get glazed over, it's almost like getting sandpaper full of debris. It won't cut. A fresh stone will always cut very, very nicely. I got a dressed stone, got my leg angle set, I've got my distance set. The next thing is to set the bar in, set that up, and I'll be good to go. Then I'll be able to sharpen, and I'm going to go from this side, go around, sharpen from that side, so you can see how I sharpen both wings. And this to me works for most everything. Can you sharpen your gouges by hand? Yes, you can. If you watch Glenn Lucas, Mike Mahoney, those guys have great videos out on how to sharpen your tools. Stuart Batty is probably one of the best. His father Alan is a professional all of his life. He's one of the last trained wood turners in the old guilds. There's a lot of skill out there. I have a great video library. I can learn a lot from them, and I've met a lot of these people, most of them. Their knowledge is incredible, and wood turners will tell you anything. So I'm going to wait till this slows down and stops. Just put my brakes on. See, this wheel is nice and white now. There's no black on it. So now I can take and I can use my stick, my 3/8 long grind bowl gouge. This is all set up. I like rounding it over so I know which end I want to put in the basket. So I'll bring this up, set it in place, lock this in. I'm basically ready to go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sharpen one side, turn around, sharpen the other side. Yes, I can go from one side, but it's easier for me to swing it from the tip. As far as talking with Andy, can I touch this wheel? Yeah, it's running, but I can touch it. Yeah, I don't want to grind my fingertips away, but you can feel it a little bit. So now I put this in, hold it into the basket, hold on to this. Don't touch the tool back here, because this is a 10-to-1 ratio. You move this 1/4 of an inch, you're moving this 2 inches, 2.5 inches. So set this in, make sure your basket is clean. Sometimes if you're turning like I do next to my lathe, I'll get debris in there, make sure it's clean. Set it in, I bring it back, 2 degrees back, 2 degrees forward, 2, 3, 5, whatever. And I get it moving before I touch the stone. So I'm going to touch the stone and roll. So I touch the stone, and I roll. Get a nice clean dress. Now what I would do is, this is why I like doing it this way, because for me and my disability, I can't get my waist out of the way. Yeah, this is a little bit high, but I like to have it where I can see it. I don't like it down here. I want it up where I can see what I'm doing. So now, I started at this angle. Now I'm going to start from here and work this way and start from the other side. So I set it back in the basket. With my other hand, I can let go of this. To the stone. And bring it around. One of the things, I like a nice straight edge. I don't want it rounded because I want the tip of the tool to hit the wood first, not the high hump on the wing. So if you have to, you can always go back in, regrind that wing a little bit. If you get a little bit more of a tip and a little like an eagle beak, like a hook in the end, just redress that tip a little bit more. So that tool is basically sharpened. So I've got my depth, I got my leg angle, I got my basket depth. That's why I like using these. These work out very well for me. I've been doing it I've been setting my grinder like this for a long time. One of the things, is as you grind the stone away, you're doing this kind of thing, so you're going to have much steeper of an angle on your grind. So you have to keep adjusting your basket. CBN wheels, you do not. That's I forget what they are. It's a boron nitrate or something, and it's as hard as diamond. It'll cut anything for these high-speed tool steels that we use. So that's how I set up my grinder for the bowl gouge, whether it's 5/8, 3/8, or whatever. This method kind of works. I hope I clarified some of how I do it for setting the distance from the basket to the wheel, the leg angle, so that you can determine the pitch. In Lyle Jameson's tape, the leg determines the tip angle, the basket determines the wing angle. The other thing Lyle Jameson does, you get a small block, put it in here so you can grind off the heel so you have a shorter bevel to ride inside the bowl. I like to grind like this. I like a long grind. because I use it for a shear scrape or a shear cut. This is a very sharp edge, and it does cut. So you want to realize that you can use that in a lot of angles. You can use that for like a skew. So this is how I do it. This is what I like to determine the length. Like I said, I take and I determine my angle. I determine the length in the holder here, the leg angle, and then my basket depth. You can go back and forth until you fine tune it for what you like, and for whether you're using a spindle gouge, a bowl gouge, whether it's a 5/8, a half-inch, quarter-inch, 3/8. It's all determined by what you want to use as your primary tool. But you have several pieces that you can use to determine what tool you're using. So now you have an assortment of adjustments. Yes, you can use a piece of plywood between here, come up into your wheel. I find these work just as fine. Like I said, the determining angle, it might be off maybe 1 or 2% of an angle, 1 or 2 degrees of an angle. I don't find that it makes that much difference. Until the next time, keep turning, keep woodworking, and have a good day. Okay, so take this here. See, I like using this wheel better. So just take my stick, like this, close, close, and then this one over here, I use this for when I sharpen my scrapers. Put this in here, pick it up, make a whistle.